G'day guys, and welcome back to my OzzyOcker workbench build. This is part 8, and in this part we're going to be putting the top on top of this frame that we finished off in the last video. If you have a look at it, pretty solid. Yeah, it'll take abuse for years and years to come. Now, if you've been enjoying this series so far, could I ask that you give me a big old thumbs up? And if you haven't yet done so already, subscribe to this channel so that you can see the last few videos of this build where we make this the most awesomest OzzyOcker I've ever designed. So this would be a lot easier if you had two people to do it. I'm the size of two people, but I'm only one person. It's going to be bloody awkward. So that'll be good enough there. It's missed here and it's missed here, but it's got all the way across there, so I can sit on that surface there to get the other side flat. Once the other side's flat, I'll flip him over, I'll clean this side up. This is just the bottom though, so I don't care that much about the bottom. Same here, here, here. Not bad, pretty good. Some candle wax. A lot of candle wax. Only 33.5 kilos. I must be getting weak. Alright, now with these two big bad boys flat top and bottom, I now need to rip the edge. I've just had a look along this bottom edge here and I can see that that's pretty straight, so I'll put that up against my ripping fence on my saw, straighten this other edge out, flip it over, square up this other edge, good as gold. That way I don't have to mess around on the jointer trying to balance all of that weight. The saw's a lot bigger, it holds a lot more weight than what my jointer does. Alright, how's that? The stage is set. I like it. Looks good. Nice. Alright, so now we want to locate these tenons into the underside of these top panels, making sure that whatever happens, the frame below it might not be perfectly square. So if we were to simply measure in from that end and then on the other panel measure in from that end, you might end up with one panel here and one stepped out there. So we're going to measure out the first one to this leg here and that leg there, and from there we'll get the second one in line with the first one. Now when we measure out these tenons onto the bottom here, you could say that whatever the distance is between here and here, let's say it's 1500 millimeters, you would make your mortise here and you'd space them out by 1500 millimeters. I say that's a pretty big mistake. What you're doing is you're trying to be perfect, and if you try to be perfect, chances are you're going to be imperfect. And so what will end up happening is you tried to put your mortises in at 1500, but you were imperfect and you've got them at 1500.3 of a millimeter. So a tiny bit too far apart. So when you put this slab down on top of those tenons, which have two mortises, which are slightly too far apart, what you're going to do is you're going to ask that leg and that leg to spread apart, which opens up that joint there. So we don't want to do that. So the primary reason for these tenons is to locate the top and stop the top sliding on top of the frame here. So really I only need one to stop it from sliding forwards and two of them to stop it from sliding this way or that way. So what I'll do is on this tenon, the front vise is going to go here. So on this tenon, I'm going to locate that one spot on perfectly. On this tenon though, I'll get the width of the tenon spot on perfect, or a loosish tight fit. I want it just to slip on there. I don't want to have to hammer it down. But as far as the width of the tenon the tenon or the mortise, I'm going to oversize that by a considerable amount so that this sits hard down on that one and this one simply slips over the top of it without ever putting any stress on these joints, because I don't want to open them up. You might say maybe it's better to make it a little bit smaller, that way when you put the top down it forces it together and it closes those joints up. It does. It also opens up the bottom joint, so you're better off just having one accurate and one with a little bit of wiggle room there. So with this, I could put these two slabs down on the ground, flip this frame over and put it down and then get a knife and mark around it. For this, I'm just going to use measurements and I'm going to measure on each leg, because they'll be slightly different because I put a smooth plane over all of these. I'll measure the shoulder width and I'll mark my line in, and then I'll measure how wide that tenon is and I'll mark another line in. Then I'll mark my edge line here and I'll measure how wide that is, another edge line there, and it'll give me a perfect line. And with any luck, this will just fit. But I doubt it. My tendons never fit. Oh, not bad. That's beautifully flush. Oh, tell you what, we need to get feeler vision. Wouldn't a lot of guys like that? But if you could feel that, that is beautifully flush all the way along. Alright, so it's a little bit gappy there. Not too bad, I could live with that. And across here, it's not too bad, pretty good, I could live with that. Where are we? This one here, it's not too good. It's I could live with it, but I wouldn't be happy about it. So we'll see what we can do. And under here, if it shows up, it is. You can see that's kind of gappy at the top there. That's kind of weird. So before I try to adjust things, adjust the level so that it closes up all of those gaps, because when I do that, it's going to raise and lower certain sections of this top. I want to get the other one on there. That way I can raise and lower and close up those gaps while trying to maintain a flat, even surface across the top. To get the back panel on the frame in line with this edge here, we first want to make sure that this edge here is actually square, and I'd say that's about as good as it's going to get. So because this is square here, we can pick this up and rest it up on top of the tenons there. Try to get it in line with the face of your legs there. As close as you can, just eyeball it. You'll get very close just by looking straight down vertically. And then by using a straight edge along what this is known to be a square edge, we want to hold that up against this edge here and then slide this across until it hits there without actually bumping the straight edge too far. So that looks pretty good. Make sure that you've still got this table still in line with the front edge of your bench here, so that we know that we haven't tilted this one way or the other. Check it again, make 1,000 checks. I'd say it's not getting any better than that. So now we can get our marking knife and just put a mark up under the underside of the top, either side of these tenons. We're not worried about the front shoulders or the back shoulders, because we're going to measure those out because we did a really good job last time, so we may as well continue that method. We just want to mark where they go left and right. Now it's this front edge which is my most important one. This is the one that's going to locate this top sliding backwards and forwards. So this one I want to get spot on, bang on, perfect. Then we can flip this over and work on the underside of it. So then with our marks, where are we? Here and here. So if you remember these marks, I actually made them a lot wider across the length here, just so it doesn't foul the joints at the front there. So if it's here, let's go another 3mm back that way. Here we'll go 3mm back that way, and we'll make some knife lines. These digital marking gauges really are awesome. I know I speak about them a lot on this channel, but it is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then we can route them out. All right, let's see if we can get 2 for 2. Oh. there's a little bit of a lip there, not much. And that one's a lot better. Seems to be pretty even all the way across. What about gaps? Not bad, I can live with that. Oh, that's dreadful. So I've got a problem along this one here. I suspect it isn't fully seating down. There's something stopping it. It's not that side rail. I think it might just be the mortise itself that it's locking onto that back edge of that leg. And before I give it a tap left or right, see what's going on, we'll just check that I've got this flush on the ends, and it looks, it's very, very close. There's a little bit of wobble there. If I go the other way, oh, I hit that edge just, oh. So because I'm hitting that edge, that means this is back that way. If I give it a tap that way a little bit, it might drop into the other side as well. No. That looks like it's stuck. That also means I need to pick my poison. So this has to go, firstly it has to go down at this side here so it bottoms out, and it also needs to move across a little bit. So if I take a little bit of meat off this side of the mortise there, it'll open that up a little bit, so it should go down, and it should allow it to go across that little bit as well. But it's a tiny amount that we need to take. So I actually suspect that this wall wasn't quite square, it was actually tapered. So as it went further and further, it pushed it across and got tighter and tighter. So if I just square up that wall or slightly undercut it, I can still trust my knife lines up top here. We'll see how that fares. That sounds good, nice and solid, and that looks pretty good too. Yeah, I could be happy with that. That's actually pretty good. Like, it's not perfect, but it's going to be a very difficult joint to get that perfect anyway, so if I can get them all like that, I'd be a happy camper. So yeah, I am a happy camper. Good stuff. Alright, so using the straight edge along this back edge again, we want to check that they're nice and flush, and I can see that I've got a gap right there. Now that gap is 0.15 of a millimetre. It just fits in there, just. So that tells us that, or it's a good example of, if you mark things out correctly with knife lines and you work to those knife lines and you trust them, things just line up. So it's not bragging, like obviously that's pretty bloody good. I'm telling you right now, I got bloody lucky here. But if you trust your knife lines, you get lucky more often than not. All right, so I'm really happy with this. It's come up a lot more accurate than I was expecting. I was expecting to have to fart around with this a lot. I'm still gonna have to mess around with it a little bit because I've got these gaps along the two long rails, both front and back. The front's worse than the back, but I want to get it right simply because I want these top panels to be hard down on those legs. At the moment, I'm not sure that they are. I know that there's a gap at the front. They might be hard down at the back. I can't see that, but I can certainly see that there's a gap at the front. So I want that because that's my major clunking spot. Like if I hit there, you can hear it. If I hit here, you can hear it bounces. Now that's because it's not locked down. Once I lock it down, that will take that bounce out quite a lot, but there will still be a little bit of bounce there, so that when I do chiseling, it's always going to be over the legs there. The vise will be here, I'll have things in the vise, chop, 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 straight over the top of the legs. So I want them hard down. So I've gone all around it. I'll put up a bunch of photos because it's hard to film. I found all the gaps, and I found that they're hard down on these two end rails. They're sitting above this middle rail and they're sitting above the two longer rails. So if I take a little bit of height off those two side rails, everything should just drop down, just that little bit. I've also got these panels, they're very flat to each other. They're very, very flat to each other. But you can see that it wiggles, which means it's crowned at the top, not by much. Enough to make a seesawing noise, but not too bad. So that means I can flatten it out, and what it means is I'll have to take a little bit more off the middle at the moment, but we're about to drop those side rails down. What would happen there possibly is it might drop that inside down a little bit, and we'll see what happens. So I'll take some shavings off those two end rails, get it nice and flat, because the less I have to take off the top here, the better, because all I want to do is take some smoothing shavings. I don't actually want to take hogging passes off it, because I don't want to reduce thickness. I went around and I measured out the gaps with feeler gauges to see just how much I needed to remove off. Then I made a few marking gauge lines to give me a guide so that I know just how much to remove, otherwise I'm flying blind. Alright, so I've removed the grey line. I can actually just see it there. Still got a little bit more there. I'll take that a little bit more off there and a little bit more here. And now we'll give him another shot. Hopefully it'll just seep down that little bit further. Oh, that was easy. Oh, hang on a minute. Oh. I'm going to bring the camera over right now. Have a look at this. This is brilliant. Oops. Can you see the gap? Because I can't. All the way along, eh? And the other leg. That is beautiful. That is so good. That is also so lucky. What about this one? There's a bloody gap. There's a gap. The gap along this front rail is slightly less. It's very even, so that's not a bad sign. I think I've just done a shit job chiseling this, to be honest. But that gap there, it's not that great. And you've got a little gap between the rail and the top. I can live with that, that's no problem at all. And this one, forget about the plain tear out, but there's a gap along there as well. It's not great. Alright, so to mark out these dog holes, in my plans which are available for purchase, I have a dog hole layout. Now I have to make an update to these plans because I put too many dog holes. What I've got is I've got a line of dog holes in front of the tail vise running along, all the way along, all the way along, all the way, and they need to finish here before the plate, before it gets to the vise. Then it can jump over the vise and put another one at the back end. The reason why I can't put dog holes directly over the vise here is because there's an aluminium plate on the bottom side of the vise which is going to sit under there. So if I was to drill a hole all the way through the table and then down again, this plate would cover that hole up, and so any dust that got into that hole would get trapped in there. You wouldn't be able to get it out without a vacuum, and if you tried to put a dog all the way through there or a hold fast all the way through there, it would just go clunk. So that's no good. So I need to remove 2 of those holes from the plans, so you'll be able to download a new updated copy when this video goes live. Other than that, what we want to do, get these out of the way. They're good, aren't they? I want to find some common references. So to begin with, .8. Yeah, a little bit past 2200, 2200.2, somewhere about that. So we can call these outside edges square. So from that, I can mark a line across here for my row of dog holes for the tail vise. Now Terry Gordon over at H&T Gordon, he's got some good videos up on YouTube. I'll leave some links down below for him, but he's got some good videos with regards to the height of your bench and also where you put your dog holes and also work holding on your workbench and all sorts of stuff. He explains things a lot better than I, but I'm going to have my tail vise here. I'm going to have a row of dog holes all the way along, jumping over the vise as I just said. And I want to set them inside the bench far enough so that I can put my plane down on edge and have enough meat in front of the dog hole so that I can use the front of my bench as a shooting board, like that. But I don't want to put the dog hole so far in that I have to actually lean over so far just to plain basic boards. So I commonly use 6x1 boards. It's the most common size timber that I use. So if I just put that there, put it just inside the edge, half of that is, well, half of 6 inches is 3 inches or 75 mil. A little bit in, let's call it 80 mil. But by the time I machine this board down to a finished size, it'll be 140. So that'll be 70 millimeters. So 70 millimeters plus a little bit, 75 mil, which is perfect because that'll give me enough meat in front of my plane to put it on edge to plane along there. I'm not leaning over to plane so far in, and funnily enough, that's exactly what Terry Gordon says. He says 75 mil in for his tail vise. Perfect number. He's a smart guy, that man. So then we know how far our dog holes in from the bench are going to be. To start them, they need to start in front of the tail vise here within 100 millimeters. So this has a 100 millimeter stroke. Now I've got an exact measurement where the first hole is, and then I've just got it spaced out. Now the spacing that I've chosen allows it to have a hole here, jump up and over, because there's a rail here. I don't want a hole over any of the rails. So you've got a hole here, there's a hole on the other side of the rail, and it just happens to fit down inside all of the corner bracing that we put on in the last video, and it goes through, jumps over the center rail, it doesn't land on top of the center rail, it keeps going, keeps going, keeps going, misses that rail there, clears everything. So that if you would look down any of these holes, you'll be able to see the ground on all of them. You don't want to see something blocking it, because if something's blocking it, your hold fast don't go through, dirt gets trapped in there, it's just bad. So I've figured it all out. The next thing, so that gives us our row of dog holes for the tail vise. And then directly over here, I'm just going to put a hole here, a hole here, a hole here, perfectly square from the dog holes. Same again here and here. I want everything square. I want my dog hole strip and then square dogs across. Because our tables are square, I can measure from the front edge and this side edge straight across, mark some lines, drill them out, and happy days. So enough talk, we're going to drill a bunch of holes. So we're going to drill a bunch of holes. The only thing critical is the placement of the holes, and then we're just going to drill some bloody holes. Done. Right, and so that's the back panel done, all drilled out as well, same way. And you'll notice that I didn't drill all the way through on any of it. The reason for that is that every time I punch through on the drill press, even if I've got a zero clearance or it's hard up to the bottom, it'll give it a little divot mark, it'll splinter out some of the timbers, which when I try to slide it across the drill press table, those splinters catch and they get in the way, and because I'm drilling out 1,000 holes, I didn't want to have to mess around with it. This way, if I leave it unfinished, put it on my bench over here, put a sheet of MDF under that side, another at the other end just to level it up. That way I can just finish off with the drill, just go put the drill bit in the hole, and to centre it, just get it roughly centre, get the shafts roughly centre in the hole, and then just plunge on through. Right, so I'm going to finish up this video here. I'm not actually going to bolt these tops to the frame yet. I want to do that once and only once. All I'm going to do is I'm going to use a 6-inch coach screw up through the rail into this top, and I want to torque it down. Now, because I'm going to torque it down, I only want to do that once, because it's not like steel. If you torque down timber time and time again, all that happens is you chew out the timber and it doesn't matter what you do anymore, the timber's gone. So when I'm finished, everything's polished, I'm going to put these in there, tighten it down. Happy days. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you next video when I'm going to do the shelf the next video. So if you want to see that, be sure to hit that subscribe button. If you enjoyed this video, if you're thinking this is bloody good, hit that big old thumbs up, and I'll see you next time. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11.